My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not my will, but your will be done. When he went back to his disciples, found them asleep. And he said to Peter, "So, you could not watch 1 hour with me? Watch and pray that you may not undergo the test. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And withdrawing a second time, he went to his place in the garden, again kneeling, and he prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible that this cup pass without my drinking it, your will be done." Again, he returned to his disciples and found them asleep, for they could not keep their eyes open. So he left them and withdrew to where he was before and prayed again the same thing over and over. Then he returned to his disciples who were sleeping, and he said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Get up. Let us go. For the hour of my deliverance is at hand, when the Son of Man will be handed over to sinners. Look, my betrayer is at hand."
"Hail, Rabbi," and he kissed him. Jesus answered,
"Friend, do what you have come for."
Then stepping forward, they laid hands on Jesus and arrested him.
Those who had arrested Jesus led him away and took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and elders were assembled. Peter was following at a distance, as far as the high priest's courtyard, and going inside, he sat down with the servants to see the outcome. The chief priests and the entire Sanhedrin kept trying to obtain false testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward who stated, "This man said, 'I can destroy the temple of God and within 3 days rebuild it.'" The high priest rose and addressed him. "Have you no answer? What are these men testifying against you?" But Jesus was silent. The high priest addressed him again. "I order you to tell us under oath before the living God if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said to him in reply, "You have said so, but I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." At this, the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has blasphemed! What further need have we of witnesses? You have now heard this blasphemy. What is your opinion?" They said, "He deserves to die." And they spat in his face, and they struck him, while some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy for us, Christ. Who was it that struck you?"
Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard. One of the maids came over to him and said, "You too were with Jesus the Galilean." He denied it in front of everyone, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." As he headed out to the gate, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, "You were with Jesus the Nazarene." He denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." A little later, the bystanders came over to Peter and said, "Surely you two are one of them. Even your speech gives you away." At this, he began to curse and swear, "I do not know the man." And suddenly a cock crowed. And Peter remembered the words Jesus had spoken. "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." He went out and began to weep bitterly.
When it was morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. Now Jesus stood before the governor, who questioned him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." And when he was accused by the priests and the elders, he made no answer. Then Pilate said, "Do you not hear how many things they are testifying against you?" But Jesus did not answer him one word, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now, on the occasion of the feast, the governor is accustomed to release to the crowd one prisoner whom they wish. And at that time, there was a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had all assembled, Pilate said to them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus called Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy that they had handed him over. While he was still seated on the bench, Pilate's wife sent him a message.
Have nothing to do with that righteous man. I suffered much in a dream today because of him.
The chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas, but to destroy Jesus. Pilate said to them in reply, "Which of the two shall I release to you?" They said, "Barabbas." Pilate said, "Then what shall I do with Jesus called Christ?" They all said, "Let him be crucified." Pilate said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they only shouted the louder, "Let him be crucified!" Pilate saw that he was not being successful at all, and that a riot was breaking out instead. He took water in the sight of the crowd, washed his hands, saying, "I'm innocent of this man's blood. Look to it yourselves." And the whole people said in reply, "His blood be upon us and upon our children." Then Pilate released Barabbas to them. But after he had Jesus scourged, he handed him over to be crucified.
Then the soldiers of the governor brought Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him of his clothes and threw a scarlet military cloak about him. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Weaving a crown of thorns, they placed it on his head and a reed in his right hand. They spat upon him. They took the reed, and they were striking him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they removed the cloak, dressed him in his own clothes, and led him away to crucify him. On the way out, they met a Cyrenian named Simon. This man they pressed into service to carry the cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they gave Jesus wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he had tasted it, he refused to drink. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And above his head they placed the written charges against him. This is Jesus, King of the Jews. 2 revolutionaries were crucified with him, one on his right, the other on his left. And those passing by reviled him, shaking their heads, saying, "You who said you could destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself if you are the Son of God. Come down from that cross." Likewise, the chief priests, the scribes, the elders mocked him as well and said, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. So this is the King of Israel? Let him come down from that cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusted in God. Let God deliver him if he wants him. He said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the 2 revolutionaries who were crucified with him mocked him and abused him in the same way.
From noon onward, darkness covered the whole land until 3 p.m. And at about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some of the bystanders who heard it said, "Look, this one is calling for Elijah." Immediately, one of them ran to get a sponge, soaked it in wine, and putting it on a reed, gave it to him to drink. But the rest said, "Wait, let us see if Elijah comes to save him." But then Jesus cried out again in a loud voice and gave up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the sanctuary was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked, rocks were split, tombs were opened, and the bodies of many saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming forth from their tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. The centurion and the men with him who were keeping watch over Jesus feared greatly when they saw the earthquake and all that was happening. And they cried out, "Truly, this was the Son of God." There were many women there looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be handed over to him.
Taking the body, he wrapped it in clean linen and laid it in a new tomb he had hewn in the rock. Then he rolled a large stone across the entrance of the tomb and departed. The Gospel of the Lord.
Christ Jesus, though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God something to be grasped. Rather, he took the form of a slave, and being born in human likeness, he humbled himself, even submitting himself to death and death on a cross. Jesus took on our humanity, and he suffered what we suffer. He experienced life in its good times as well as in its bad. He knows what it's like to live on in skin. So he came to us, the eternal Son of the Father, came down to share our life and to live in skin. It's not unusual, however, for us to try to reverse that process. Instead of living our humanity, we try to grasp a little bit at God, saying in one way or another, I'm just a bit above. I'm just a little bit better. And we do that every time we judge someone else, every time we can criticize them as being less than we are, anytime that we treat them with condescension or we demean someone else, call them names that's saying, yeah, you're this and I'm just a little bit above. We grasp at it. And isn't that what causes most of the problems of the world? The truth is that the more we not only admit our humanity, but accept it as being real, the more we talk about and are willing to admit our frailty, the better off we are. You know, when someone makes a mistake and they're all embarrassed and you say, oh, don't worry about it, I make that mistake all the time. What do you feel like? Just the other day, I was talking and I forgot what I was going to say, and the person says, well, I'm glad to see you do that. I'm kind of relieved. I said, well, why is that? He says, because that means maybe I'm not having Alzheimer's. Or maybe we both are. There's a connection that's made when we share our humanity. Admit our mistakes. Ask for forgiveness. Grant forgiveness. What we're doing is saying we're all in this as one together. And if we could see at all times, if all peoples in the world could see at all times that everybody bleeds the same, everyone loves the same, everyone grieves the same, then I suspect there wouldn't be wars and torture. There wouldn't be the condescensions and the demeaning, and there wouldn't be the very poor and the very, very rich. There would be more of a sharing of who we are. If we all admitted we need the same things, and we admitted that all have a right to life. So in Jesus coming down from heaven to share our skin and our human experience, he is like us in all things except sin. And he knows what it's like to walk the earth. And as we heard in that reading, it doesn't end with him, with the reading saying that he submitted himself even to death on a cross. But it goes on to say, and then God the Father raised him again and has exalted him above all. And if we can admit our humanity and accept it and share that with others and know that Jesus shares that with us, then we too will know where that humanity leads as Jesus went back to God in the resurrection. so too is our humanity made to return to the Father. So today we recall part of the great mystery of our salvation. And in this passion, we know that in our humanity, we are not destined to stay here, but we're called to the Father in heaven.